Alright, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification because you never know the video you suggest that could be next. Especially if you comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you want to see. Then we'll see what we can do in it. Also, on top of that, follow the Akabeel on Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff there. And look, this is a reaction video to Journey of an African Colony, part 5. You know, this is a docu-series, Making of Africa, sorry, making of the making of Nigeria. And yeah, so this part is I will die for my country. I don't know about you, but I'm not dying for my country. I mean, Nigeria, they want to call it Nigeria, and we realize it's now called N-word area. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, nah, forget that. I will not die for that country. I will not die for Great Britain. Get me? The only people I will die for is die for my family. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, let's just get straight into it. So yeah, let's go.
One human tragedy was to build the world order we know today. One world event would come to the aid of all Africans in the most painful way. Through the means of fighting for empire, whether it was their war or another man's war, British subjects in the colonies were exposed to a most unusual reality: dying for empire.
See, this is why education is so important. Like, knowing your history and knowing, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it. Dying for an empire. It's like, hang on, like, so you oppress my people, you oppress my, you oppress my people, friends, family, and then now you want me to go fight in a war that I didn't start. You want me to fight a fight that I didn't start. And I've got no problems with those people. Although obviously they did try to make it out like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but still, like, come on, man. You must be out here. Anyway.
Hoping to overcome evil and oppression, the World War II allies would open the door to that reality, the equality of the races.
I would die for my country. I wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany. At such a moment as this, the assurances of support which we have received from the Empire are a source of profound encouragement to us. Now may God bless you all, and may He defend the right. For it is evil.
Whoa. But it was evil. What? I was going to say something. Yeah, I'm going to say it now. And I'm going to rewind it. How? Look, let's think this for a hot minute, yeah? I could be completely wrong. And listen, I'm more than welcome to you correcting these wrongs. You hear me? If you have other evidence to prove otherwise. Now, I learned that, I found this out ages ago. This is what happens when you should always have a mindset of being open-minded and always questioning things. All right, so basically, World War One, World War Two isn't a world war, because when I literally think of a world war, I don't know about you, but you can leave it out in the comment section below. Yeah, despite what you were taught, but what do you think world war actually means? Like, for me, if I'm looking at the words world war, it's like every country is at war with each other. But then again, world war. Now, that's what I actually thought, I'm gonna lie. And then now, while I'm saying this, I'm like, hang on, that don't make any sense. World war, okay. So we're believed to, you've got the world, which is the earth, yeah? Okay, so they're at war with another world. Now that makes more sense to me. It may sound dumb, yeah, and I get it if it does sound dumb, but if there are other species on different planets, which there most probably are, let's be honest, we can't be the only species, along with animals and insects, we can't be the only species that live in this universe. We can't be. It don't make no sense. Yeah, it don't make no sense. But anyway, what was I gonna say? So yeah, but I learned that it's to do with the German Empire, basically. The German Empire were the enemy of the British Empire and French Empire. You see what I'm saying? So what do you think they did? The French Empire, the French Empire and the British Empire teamed up and said, we don't want the German Empire to rise up. You know what I mean? Listen, there's levels to it, yeah, and Russia's involved as well. Back then, they were called the USSR. Alright, listen. Anyway, listen. Let's get back into it. But I'm telling you, yeah, when you deep history as a whole properly, yeah, I'm telling you, like, anyway, let's go.
At such a moment as this, the assurances of support which we have received from the Empire are a source of profound encouragement to us. Now, may God bless you all, and may He defend the right. For it is evil things that we shall be fighting against: brute force, bad faith, injustice, oppression, and persecution.
The same things that they're doing.
Against them I am certain.
Hello, listen, I don't want to laugh or anything, because obviously,
Evil things?
see, even he's going to repeat it. Even he's going to repeat it. So I don't got to rewind it. I'm going to write it for a second though, get me, just so we can get me. But come on. The irony of it. Let's go.
And persecution. And against them I am certain that the right will prevail.
Evil things? Brute force? Bad faith? Injustice and persecution. But these were the life experiences of Africans and Nigerians in particular in their colonial life. And this was the right that would prevail. The outbreak of the Second World War in 1939 disrupted international trade markets. It took little time for the effect of this to show up on Nigerian streets. An estimated 120,000 native Nigerian men were enlisted to join British forces, mostly serving in Southeast Asia, Burma in particular. During the war, French West Africa was aligned to the Vichy government that was aligned to the Hitler army. And Equatorial Africa was aligned with the Free France movement. Unknown to many today, Baudillard's World War II Nigeria was an essential part of the theater of the war. First of all, Nigeria quickly transformed into an important logistics hub. The Royal Air Force planes used Nigeria's 17 aerodromes, particularly Ikeja Aerodrome, as repair hangars. Free France needed the colony for money to prosecute the war, as other European countries were using their colonies. But it succeeded in greatly assisting Charles de Gaulle and the Free France effort against the Vichy government to liberate France. Nigeria was bordered by French assets, Dahomey, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. The first target for Free France was Gabon and Chad. Logistics, supplies, communications, and aircraft were all provided for the operations by Nigeria. In fact, he succeeded with the great assistance of Nigerians and other Africans. We shall see that it should be a matter of regret that the people who gave so much for this colony received so little recognition for their contributions to the new world order brought in by the success of the Allies in World War II. We should look for a memorial in his greater than our past. The words of Ben Okri, British Nigerian poet. Those words on these great pillars are here to memorialize the 5 million odd volunteers, enlisted, conscripted loyal subjects of the empire who contributed to the 2 world wars in defense of the empire, king and country. Greater than our past, except you have to know your past. West Africa alone contributed over 250,000 men to the Second World War.
Damn.
Nigeria, over 120,000.
Damn.
The produce, tin, rubber, palm kernel, all the produce of the colony of Nigeria was dedicated to the war effort.
On paper, the Royal West African Force was generally a volunteer army. Typically, they would choose rural areas. In these areas, the British wouldn't have to...
I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that they were volunteers. I refuse to believe that. And the only reason why I refuse to believe that is because, like, I could be wrong, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I'm watching this and reacting to this. But the only reason why I refuse to believe they were volunteers is because that's like saying, oh, they kidnap indigenous peoples from their land, take them to a different land, and then put them to work where, you know what I mean? Now, that term they use them as they call it slaves, but they're not slaves, they're prisoners of war. Or they're captives, not slaves, because the word slave comes from Slavic, and Slavic or Slavic is actually European. Now, although in fact we'll talk about European in another video, but like Slavic is European, by the way. Do you know what I mean? Let's make it make sense. Yeah, there's a group of people called Slavic people, and I'm listen, they actually are Caucasian. They're not black. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how they play on words and play on history? Anyway, but yeah, I refuse to believe that they were volunteers. It doesn't make sense. It's like they were told to do it. You know what I mean? By whomever. I don't know. Like, I wasn't there in it, but like maybe they were volunteers. Who knows? But I just refuse they were volunteers.